You're listening to Pathways and Means, a podcast that inspires and shows people how to tap into their creative spirit. We sit down with leaders and makers in every industry to talk about their process, what inspires them, and about how to build incredible things with the power of creativity. The future belongs to the creators, so come join us. This is Pathways and Means.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to Pathways and Means. We are back here in the studio. Less hair than last time, more beard than last time. It's Ryan Brinker. We don't really even need the introduction at this point. This is our third episode talking about money with the one, the only, the Hickster. Bill Hickey is back in the building. We got a wonderful reception to both of the previous two episodes involving Bill. People want to hear more. Bill has more to say, and we're happy to have him say it here on the program. Bill, thanks for joining us for a third time.
You're quite welcome. Less hair for you, but not for me.
Okay. Well, that's good. You have enough for the both of us, and that's nice.
Yeah, I do.
So I guess to start things off, it's the first question that I asked you on your second appearance, I think, but I'm always interested. What has been the reception for you from the last time that you were on the episode?
Good. I've had people reach out to me, like I said previously, that know me, don't know me. They like what they see. They like things I'm talking about. It's more down to earth, realistic, attainable, achievable for the average person, maybe is the way to say it, which is great. That's what I am. And especially with the way the economy is right now, recession might be coming. Companies starting to downsize job hirings. Things are slowing down. The Fed's raising interest rates to slow the economy down, to stay above inflation. Multiple income streams. The more you have, the better.
Yeah.
And I'll be talking about a couple more today that are awesome. But I've had a good response to answer your question.
Yeah.
I don't know what feedback you guys have received, but I've gotten positive feedback.
Oh, we've gotten an enormous amount of people wanting another episode for this discussion. And actually, cool. I think even before we get into the day's topic, the other investment strategies that you wanted to talk about, maybe it's worth pointing out that, like you had hinted at, one of the reasons why there's so much additional interest in this is because of how the economy is. Yeah. In terms of just even since the last time you were on here, there have been more shifts, a little bit more seismic activity. And I think that's got people, first of all, concerned, obviously, but also, on the other hand, maybe more interested than they had previously been in these additional income streams. I think the idea of the most stable place to be economically being a job where you collect a paycheck, that sort of might not be how people feel anymore. Yes. Do you get a sense that people are getting more interested in investments and that sort of thing because of the way the economy's going?
Most definitely. There's plenty of podcasts. Watch CNBC, talk to people. There's many different forms of passive income streams. To answer your question, yes. Things are different since I saw you last. I think I mentioned in the last podcast, the interest rates for mortgages were about 4%. Now they're about they're north of 5%. That's a big hit. It really is. And also, earlier in the year, everybody was hiring. Companies couldn't keep up with job openings. They had so many people they wanted to hire. They had so many positions to be filled. Things are starting to change. With inflation being the number one priority, at least our president's talking about, the Federal Reserve is starting to raise interest rates. They have started to raise interest rates since I saw you last. What does that mean? Why do they do that? You might think, oh, the economy, inflation sucks, like why is the Federal Reserve making rates higher that makes us squeeze more, make mortgages cost more? Well, the Federal Reserve basically, with their point of view, is they're raising interest rates slowly but surely because they want to slow the economy down. That sounds horrible, but they actually want to slow the economy down. They want to have things kind of slow down, so basically inflation isn't as hard. Companies, going forward, they're going to actually have less job openings. Companies, I think Tesla was on the news yesterday or on the weekend that said he was going to cut his force by 10%, I think, and freeze hiring. Companies are starting to realize the impact of interest rates going higher and inflationary concerns, fuel costs, everything that's happening right now. They're actually going to be hiring less, meaning less jobs available, which means hold on to your job, which means if you want to get a great job, it's going to be harder to find than, say, the past 6 months. Yeah. So things on the horizon are happening, and obviously, the chair analogy I gave last time, either 2 times ago I was here, if you have one source of income, your job, and you lose that, that's not good. If you have multiple sources of income and you lose one, the other one still provide, okay, you're okay, basically. Yeah. So the interest in multiple income streams, whether the economy is great or it's not so great, in my book, is always a good thing.
It's so interesting. I'm glad you reminded me of this. This is something that I wanted to mention when we got you back on the show, because we've gotten messages here, again, just about some of the things that we've discussed and wanting to see you back on the show. What I find really interesting is who the messages are from. These are like historically, you would have the stereotype of like the Wall Street guy in the 80s in the suit, working on Wall Street and that kind of thing. And yeah, even outside of that, like the crypto bro, cryptocurrency teenage person who's mining Bitcoin and that sort of thing. This isn't who it is. It's like Facebook moms. It's like people in their 40s who have like 2 children who are all of a sudden talking about, how can I start putting money to work for me? Yeah. These are people who have had jobs for 10, 15 years, who are out there doing the thing. And yet, with these changes in the economy, and also I think the ubiquity of things like Robinhood, Crypto.com, these other places, FTX. All of a sudden investment is a little bit more available to everybody. And that's leading interest. And I think more than interest even, it's making it less scary to get involved. I think that investment is kind of for everybody now, don't you think? Especially
the first podcast with you guys talked about commissions. I'm going to harp this again. Commissions.
Yeah, this is the thing that you're passionate about. The lack of commissions now.
It's incredible. I invested some money, I think about 2 weeks ago, logged into my Vanguard account, not to plug them always, but I have a Vanguard account, logged in, invested some money, bought some shares of a certain ETF, commission free. To get to your point, you just said, yes, is it more accessible with the smartphones? Anybody walking around on the street corner, I'm going to invest some money. They can log on their phone and do it instantly, just like that.
I think that this is something naturally that happens anytime you have a technological advancement or when things become more ubiquitous. I'll just give a couple of examples here, but specifically the one I'm thinking about is crypto.
Sure.
Because crypto, even 7 years ago, you had to be pretty technically proficient, very plugged in the know, and aware of even where to start. Yeah. The average person, if they were even aware of what Bitcoin was, wouldn't know where to begin. But once these things become more popular, then you get templates, then you get services. There's that Matt Damon commercial for Crypto.com. All of a sudden, you no longer have to be tech savvy to own Bitcoin. You just have to download an app at the App Store. Same kind of thing again with Robinhood. You don't really need to do anything outside of just attach your bank account to an app. And much in the same way that in the early 90s, if you wanted to design a website, you had to be very technically proficient. And now there are plugins like WordPress and these other places where you can just put the information and the web page is built for you. That goes to show how it becomes more and more widespread and more usable, and with that accessibility becomes more open. And I think it's interesting that now investment is that way, where investment has been seen for a long time as a tool of the wealthy that's out of the reach of normal people who just sort of have to get jobs. I don't think it is that way anymore. And I think that the availability of apps and commission-free services and these sorts of things are evidence of that. And again, that's been reflected in our audience, who wouldn't be the standard audience for investment, who's been very interested in this. So with all that in mind,
very true.
And again, talking about the interest as it is, I know that there are a couple things that you wanted to talk about today. You've hinted at them in previous ones. The first one is the idea of real estate as an investment. Why don't we dive into that a little bit?
Sure. I own some real estate. I am diversified, not just market investments, but also real estate and other things too. I have gold, various things too. Real estate's awesome. I think of Ray Kroc. If you don't know who Ray Kroc is, he's basically the magic sauce behind McDonald's.
There's that movie, The Founder, about him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He basically bought the McDonald's name and trademark from the McDonald's brothers, 1961. Genius. I mean, Ray Kroc, I would have loved to have met the guy. He basically sold the rights, franchises to Disney, created McDonald's into the global brand of what it is, Well, I remember watching this documentary about Ray Kroc. It's like 1982. The footage is kind of grainy, kind of old school. And he's, speaking to like a Ivy League school, Harvard, Yale, one of those two, I don't remember. He's there, commencement speech kind of thing. He's up there talking to these newly minted graduates. They're young in their early 20s. They got their degrees. They're going to go out and rule the world. So he talks to the class. They all know who he is, supposedly. So he asks these crowd of young people, and he's like, "Do you guys know, what business I'm in? What I do? The crowd's silent. They all know McDonald's. So then finally, a guy says, "Well, you're in the restaurant business." He's like, "Actually, I'm in the real estate business." And I watched that and I heard that and I was just like, wow, you know?
Yeah.
Think about McDonald's, the company, you know, where they have locations at, their global reach, their global fingers in communities, wealthy communities, United States, lower end, you know, low income communities. They're everywhere. They have that magic. And he said he was in the real estate business. I thought that was pretty cool. Our former president, Donald Trump, he basically made most of his wealth from investment producing properties, real estate, golf courses, casinos, you know, things like that. Real estate's awesome. Real estate is, in my opinion, and others too, it's a hedge. Meaning this year so far in 2022, my market investments have gone down like most everybody's.
Sure.
But my real estate holdings have gone up in value.
Yeah.
Meaning it can be a hedge to have diversification and also hedge some losses for maybe one thing a person invests in versus something else. It's good to have that. And also real estate can be leveraged. Leveraged basically is a way to use something to your advantage to produce income if that's your goal. I have an investment property here in town and I use it for income and it's pretty neat. And I can talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of using real estate as an investment, is that something that you already have to be wealthy in order to get into?
No, a good credit score is very imperative.
Yeah.
To be able to get a mortgage, good credit score is very, very important. Good income, you know, to buy a house is kind of common sense. But there's also the investment real estate side where you buy real estate that you don't live in, that you want to use for an investment. I've owned some in the past, I own some now, and they're pretty neat. How to get I'm an income investor, multiple streams of income, passive income, that's kind of my thing. There are ways to get multiple streams of income from investment real estate that I'll talk about today that I think are pretty cool.
Well, yeah, let's say you are a person who's looking to use real estate as a form of investment. You buy a new property. Mm-hmm. Then what do you do with it in order to turn it into passive income?
Basically, in a nutshell, the average person, say here in Topeka, perfect example, anybody. Let's say somebody buys a house and it's worth $100,000. Mm-hmm. I know the average person can't just like buy a house, but let's say you get to a point where you buy a house, you pay the mortgage on it, and someday you own a house simply. Here's the house, here in Topeka, hypothetically, it's worth $100,000.
Yeah.
Easy numbers.
Sure.
It's worth $100,000. Well, the average person that wants to use that to produce income is basically going to want to have it rented out for a tenant to lease it and pay rent, of course. Well, the national average for rent for houses that are around $100,000 is about 1%. Mm-hmm. So with easy numbers, let's say someone has a house worth $100,000, they rent it out, they get $1,000 a month, it's $12,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's income. That is money you can use to help pay the property taxes, insurance, and depreciation. But the excess, assuming you have a good renter, assuming a lot of things factor in, you have a steady income stream from that. Great. That's the average way a person will look at an investment property, residential real estate. Great. That's awesome. Well, there's another way too. Basically, if you own a house outright worth $100,000, you can drive by a Fidelity Bank here on Gage or any other place you really want to call or check out. They offer things called HELOCs, home equity lines of credit. Or you can get a mortgage on it, refinance it, whatever you want to do, a second mortgage. There's various ways to basically borrow money from a piece of real estate, leveraging it, borrowing money from a piece of real estate you own, and then basically getting that money to in turn provide you a higher income. An example is, with interest rates right now, mortgage rates being higher right now, let's say you own a piece of property, $100,000, like I said, the tenant pays you $12,000 a year. That's awesome. Another second stream of income is basically having the house, and let's say you want to borrow money against it. Typically, a lending, financial institution, they're going to loan up to like 80% of the value, loan to value ratio. So let's say you borrow $80,000 against a house worth $100,000. That $80,000 you borrow right there, you're going to owe money on it. And I have an amortization calculator here I've looked up already.
We'll have that up on the screen now.
Sure. That's a calculator obviously people use to figure out mortgages and stuff. Hypothetically, if you're going to borrow $80,000 for 30 years, average mortgage, and let's say the interest rate is about 5% now, it's definitely higher, the monthly payment is $429. Okay, so that's how much you owe on that. Borrowing money from your piece of property of $80,000, you owe an obligation of $429 a month.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you also use that $80,000 you would borrow. Most people that would borrow money against a piece of property are going to use that to pay off high interest credit cards or do repairs in the house or things you see advertised in commercials all the time. Let's say you don't do that. Let's say you borrow that $80,000 and then you get that and you simply invest into an income ETF. I've mentioned some in previous podcasts.
Yep.
Strictly income we're talking here. The share price can go up and down. Market fluctuates up and down. We know this. Pure, simple income play. Well, there's ETFs that I invested in, I mentioned I currently still invest in, that yield about 10, 11, 12% in income. So we'll go with the average, 11%. Hypothetically, if you got the $80,000 you borrowed at 5%,
Yeah.
and you turn around and invest in that into buying an ETF that pays about 11% income, pure income play here, 11% on $80,000 is $8,800. Divide that by 12 months in a year, it's $733.
Yeah.
So it's simple fourth grade, fifth grade math. If you can borrow money from any asset in any situation, it doesn't matter, whatever it is, buy low, sell high, borrow it at this percent, 5%.
Yep.
And then you turn around and invest it into an ETF, purely income play that yields about 11%. That's spread. The $733 approximately a month you would get versus the obligation you owe on that house now of $429. The difference of that's pure income.
Yeah.
That's simply passive income in your pocket. You can choose to A, pay off this mortgage faster or home equity line of credit faster, B, invest in something else, do whatever you want with. That's another stream of income on an investment property. You have the tenant, regardless of a tenant or not. Let's say the house is vacant, because not every, any landlord's dream is to have the house rented, fully rented 12 months a year. That doesn't always happen.
Sure.
Let's say you don't have a tenant at all. You can still simply own a property, borrow against it at 5% hypothetically, turn around and invest it for 11% hypothetical income, and you're getting money on that. It's simple as that. So the two income streams of that, leveraging the real estate, plus a renter, a tenant, combined, do the math.
Yeah.
You would get an incredible amount of income from simply owning an investment property.
Well, let me ask you this. Just this was the first thing that popped into my mind as far as using real estate as an investment. Right now, the housing market is pretty crazy, which is to say that a lot of properties are worth significantly more now than they were last year.
Correct.
But, if history is any guide, it won't remain that way. The market will equalize at some point, and property values will go back down, basically to, I would assume, around pre-pandemic levels, because a lot of it has to do with supply chain and that kind of thing. So would that give anybody pause at this moment in terms of just it being kind of fluctuating and it being higher now to get into buying property?
Yes and no. I hear what you're saying. Basically, when the supply chain issues and inflation interest rates kind of even themselves out as time goes by, steadily our national average for the price of a home still kind of climbs up. Meaning, do I foresee any situation where somebody were to buy a house now where it would be worth less money in 10, 15 years? I don't think so. And also, with the multiple income streams I just shared, how to get from an investment piece of real estate, I think you'd be good to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. Myself, on a personal basis, whether the real estate market is hot, right now it's a seller's market. There's not as many houses for sale to satisfy, the hunger for people that want to buy a house. There's not enough houses. As simple as supply and demand. That's one of the main factors. Yes, supply chain. Yes, materials, costs. Of course, is factoring in the high prices right now of houses. Supply and demand is also a very big thing too. There's not enough houses for sale, like I just said. Well, that will even out. Those numbers will start evening out more. Well, you can still get various income streams from purchasing real estate. I think it's still a good investment. I wouldn't go too heavy in real estate because there's a whole conversation about being a landlord, the headaches and hassles if it's not rented every month. But yeah, I like real estate. I own some, and I personally think it'd be a good idea to own some.
I think that's really cool, and it's definitely something worth thinking about, especially for anybody who's in a position where they can be picking up property. Because, like you said, the math just adds up. Where it does seem to be pure income over time, there is still, sweat equity and that kind of thing, and maybe daily stress that goes into it. But it's certainly worthwhile in thinking about it as an investment. Outside of that, you had said something kind of interesting about making some money off of credit card offers. What's that all about?
Yeah. Well, just to finish about real estate real quick.
Sure.
Basically, yes, there's various ways to get money from real estate. In general, I will say this again. If you can borrow money from any source or any collateral, whatever it is, a low rate, invest in more, it's just simple as that.
Yeah.
That spread is awesome. Real estate's cool. Look at the many people that have made lots of money with real estate. It's neat stuff.
Yeah.
I'm an income investor. I'll say it again. Multiple streams of income. Real estate is another stream. It's awesome for, I think, anybody that wants to have various sources of income to have.
Right.
So with that being said, credit cards are awesome too. A lot of things predicate passive income. A lot of things can predicate that. Also, credit cards. Talking about real estate a second ago, to have a good credit score is vital. If you don't, you're gonna have a hard problem getting good rates for interest, on mortgages. Credit cards the same way. I brought some props. These are all credit card offers. I get these in the mail all the time. I have a good credit score. What does that mean? Basically, I get credit card offers all the time. I have a good credit score. I make money from credit cards, similar to the example I gave you with real estate a second ago.
Yeah.
And here's how. Everything is negotiable. If you go to like Walmart and Target and you want to buy a package of crackers, that's not negotiable. There's cash, they're not going to help you with that. But a lot of things are negotiable. You go to AutoZone, you go to O'Reilly's and you see spark plugs or a new filter for your car you want to buy. That stuff's negotiable. Discounts happen. Credit cards are also negotiable. For somebody that gets credit card offers, has an excellent credit score, typically what happens is credit card companies will reach out, send you offers in the mail saying, hey, you have great credit, open a credit card with us. We will give you 0% interest on balance transfers for up to 15 months, hypothetically, and purchases, balance transfers, 0%, no charge. Basically, no interest at all. They won't charge. And then their goal is to basically have you have a balance, and then at the end of their free promotion, they start charging interest. That's how they make their money.
Right.
Everything is negotiable. Typically with these cards, there's going to be, if you want to draw money against your credit line, let's say you open a credit card and the credit line is $10,000. Nice, easy number. Well, you get the credit card and then basically you want to borrow money against it. I think they're called convenience checks, at least they used to be, where if you have a credit card, you say, I want to write some checks against my credit card balance. Great. They'll mail you checks. Your name's on it, your account number and everything. You can write that check to yourself. I've done this in the past and I still do this once in a while. I'll open a credit card. My credit score is excellent. They'll send me convenience checks. I'll write a check to myself. Let's say the credit line is $10,000. I'll write a check to myself for $8,000. Have a little extra just in case something pops up. Deposit that money, $8,000. Get that $8,000, invest into an ETF that produces monthly dividends, the ones I mentioned. Let's say the yield is 10%. Throw a number out there. Well, basically, typically, you're going to have a 3% charge. The credit card companies will say, well, if you want to borrow money against it, we're going to charge you 3% or up to $5 minimum. There's like certain rules, read the fine print. That stuff's negotiable. I've called credit card companies to say, before I open the credit card or even after I had it, I want to write, I want to borrow some money against it. Well, sir, usually, cash advance is like, 20% and, just 3% charge, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, no. So I'll talk to people and I'll basically say, if you want my business, I want to do this. I've had credit card companies that are negotiable with rates and everything say, okay, we'll do this for you. So in turn, if you can get, hypothetically, a credit card, $10,000 credit line, you write a check to yourself for $8,000. Get that $8,000, go invest it, and you yield 10% on it. You're getting $800 a year, hypothetically, in a 10% income from $8,000. That's free money, pure income play, like the real estate a second ago. Not talking about the share prices because they fluctuate. Simple income from a credit card, you get that. You can choose to reinvest that income. You can keep that income. You can do whatever you want with it. Or also use that income each month you get from the income ETFs to pay off that balance that you get the bill in the mail every month for the credit card. And then when you get that bill, pay off your balance with that. And then let's say you still have a balance. It depends how much you pay a month. Let's say if you still have a balance at the end of the free promotional period for 15 months or 12 months, whatever it is. Let's say you can pay off that balance within the 15 months of free interest and it costs you nothing to use that. Great, pay it off. You still keep that $8,000 worth of shares you bought. Or B, let's say you have the balance before the promotional period ends where they start charging interest. Let's say your balance is $2,000. Fine. Sell $2,000 worth of the shares you bought from ETF, pay that balance off before that promotional rate ends so they don't charge you any interest, and you still have, hypothetically, $6,000 left that's producing you passive income, multiple streams of income that you don't clock in for.
Right.
Good credit score is vital to that, and also real estate too. And also negotiating is very important too. A lot of things are negotiable when it happens.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Those are two simple new, things I want to bring in today of how to get passive income from a couple different sources. You just got to know how numbers work, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of this is still dependent on the high yield of the ETF.
Sure.
So is that something that ever fluctuates, generally speaking?
Yes. There are yield. The amount of yield is kind of basically how much income an investment produces. There are some that produce a higher yield, more income, but there's more of a risk. There's some that produce a lower yield that have less of a risk. It depends on one's appetite risk for how much yield and income they want. But basically, if you were to borrow money from a credit card or a real estate, whatever the case is, to simply make money on it, the easy way, look at what that interest rate is charging you, whether it's 0 in the credit card example I gave, or whether it's 5% at the real estate example I gave. Whatever it's costing you, as long as it costs you less to borrow this money and you can invest in anything that will provide you more income to pay it off, that cream, that froth, that margin basically is free income. Since I've seen you guys last, there's a new ETF that I opened a new position. It's called JEPI, JEPI. Yields about 9% right now, but the share prices are very stable. It invests in some different things. It produces monthly income. It's another ETF I've been getting into. But basically, there's many, many options to invest in the market to get monthly income to do what you want with. As long as that's more than what you owe, percentage-wise, you're great.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah.
I help a lot of people. I'll help anybody.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly helping our audience because this is yet again another episode where you're in here bringing practical information. These are things people could do right now if they wanted to.
Yeah. The real estate and the credit card example, I didn't read those in a book. I didn't watch it on CMEs. I just figured it out. I mean, just knowing how numbers work, how percentages work, how to leverage. Leveraging is a big word.
Right.
How to leverage your assets. All of us have assets. These rings are worth something. This watch is worth whatever. All of us have assets. Well, how can somebody use assets if they wanted to produce income? Real estate, gold, stocks, ETFs. There's a lot of assets.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's neat.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about running up on time.
Sure.
But just like I asked you last time and the time before, what should people be looking forward to for our next discussion?
Next discussion, if you want to have me back, I want to do more market stuff. Meaning, I call it layering of ETFs. There's no term. I didn't learn about this from somebody else. I just figured it out on my own. Basically, I've mentioned ETFs in the past that produce a monthly dividend, approximately every 30 days. That's, say, a 10% yield, hypothetically. Well, there's ways to layer ETFs where you have two different ETFs that can pay you a dividend each. So in total, you get 2 dividends, hypothetically, in 2 ETFs. As long as the schedules and the X dates, as long as things correlate just right, you can basically use money you have invested to produce more income, more dividends each month. I call it layering of the ETF. It's more of an advanced theory, but I would share that definitely next time if you'd like me to.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's
looking forward to that
awesome.
discussion.
And the cool thing is that commission-free.
Right there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's simply another way that I haven't shared with this audience yet about how to get simply income from market investments.
Right.
I'll talk about that next time if you want to have me back.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
It's good stuff.
And I think this has been an enlightening conversation. I hope that you folks at home have been enjoying it. Yet again, a little bit more right now, practical information on investing, just demystifying this whole process of putting your money to work for you. If you guys like this discussion like you like the last two, then I think for sure we're going to have a part 4. So stay tuned for that. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Of course, anytime.
All right, Pathways and Means. We'll see you next time.
Good stuff.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, visit pathwaysmeans.com to check out a ton of additional content from the CPM team. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, where we post daily content and engage with creators like you. Signing off for Pathways and Means, we'll see you next time.